Welcome to Tell Me Your Story. New paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here 9 times a week. Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, as well as YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will take time to subscribe and click notifications so that when a new conversation is posted, you'll be notified and you'll be able to tune in, listen in, and learn, and be entertained and inspired. A reminder that Choices, which is my book, 5 Steps for Life, it's available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle with Audible, soon to be released. We also ask that if you can support the work that we are doing financially, we do have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And when they ask for an email address to whom you're sending, please go to richard@richarddugan.com. That's the email address. If you go to richarddugan.com, there is also a link directly to PayPal so that you can send us whatever support you can. And we thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. We also ask that you take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. And with that, we now take you to our very special interview and guest here on Tell Me Your Story. And welcome to Tell Me Your Story. It's great to have you with us, along with our very special guest returning to our program, Efu Nyaki. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Efu is another shorter version, but thank you for being with us.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
The last time we spoke, you were in Brazil, which is, I believe, your home country, correct?
Yes.
But today, as we converse, you are in the cold climes of Poland and traveling that part of the world, helping people to work through their trauma, especially after releasing your latest book, Healing Trauma Through Family Constellations and Somatic Experiences. And it's Ancestral Wisdom from the, is it the Snail Clan of Tanzania, correct?
Yes, the Snail Clan of Tanzania. That's where I was born.
As I was going to say, that's where you were born. That's your home country. And again,
Yes.
It's great to have you with us here. It was released, of course, back in 2023, but the information that you have is timeless. And I kind of want to start, for those who are joining us for the first time, I'd kind of like to start with a conversation about this whole aspect of the types of trauma, because there are all different levels. I've often said that we all experience the exact same emotions. The only difference is the intensities that we experience. And trauma's the same way. Does it matter, the intensity?
It doesn't matter the intensity, but what matters is how we interpreted it, how it hit us, and how we actually respond to it. Because trauma, it's actually not what happened to us. Yeah, trauma is how we react to it. And this is why we actually always wonder. I mean, people, even the family, 4, 5, 6 kids grow up in the same family. 2 are really traumatized with a father who was a drunken man throughout, and the other ones are not. And then you were like, what happened? Why? It's because it's how each nervous system reacts to that trauma, and how they understood it from the bodily experience too. Yeah, and that also depends on where they come from. Yeah, maybe they had other traumas prior to that, and therefore it's almost like they were fertile for this trauma that came later on in life. I could say that might be one reason, but other things we don't actually know, but that's how it is. Yeah.
So that says that and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to be insensitive to people who have experienced trauma, but it
Mhm.
says that we can create a trauma out of, in a manner of speaking, out of nothing. We could watch a leaf fall from the tree and we could generate the emotion and energy that then
Yeah.
creates a trauma. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, that is fair assessment. But you see, the thing is, if people understand this doesn't come from the cortical brain, huh? It,
Mm-hmm.
it comes from really our nervous system and how mind, if I was born, and the moment I was born, there was a lot of problems. There were a lot of war happening around us. And I was such cesarean, and I went through all kinds of things. My nervous system became fragile. So, yes, I could watch a leaf falling from the tree and I could actually pass out. You see? So,
Mm,
my nervous system is not strong enough to withstand different things that are happening around me in life. And therefore, the way I respond to it is actually going to depend on my nervous system and how my nervous system understand it. And it's all very much unconscious.
mm.
Yeah. And as you said, I'm there with you. We have to be very careful not to judge other people.
No.
Like say, imagine, that little thing there and they're traumatized. How could that be? We should avoid saying those kind of things because, as I said, it is not their cortical brain. It is the body's reaction, body's response to it. And then, of course, the body's response is going to depend on how their bodies are strong, are resilient, are ready for that, or what else they have gone through and stuff like that. Therefore, we have to understand them in all ways too. Yeah.
Mm. And that
Mm-hmm.
is, to me, that's fascinating.
It
Um,
is.
it really is. It's fascinating from the standpoint that we can create the trauma, and then at the same time, there are situations that happen in our lives that others will create a trauma within themselves that we won't, because it seems to me like it's almost as if our perspective is different than theirs, and so we don't generate all that emotional energy that creates the trauma.
Yeah. Well, instead of calling it perspective, I will say resiliency in the body. You see, so
Okay.
because it is the body, yeah, they have no resilience to withstand what things that come towards them. I mean, you have even the political situations in some countries. There are people who just said, I don't care, I don't do politics, and they just go on with their lives. There are people who are not able to sleep. They're every day worried about what is going to happen to me. You see, because their nervous system, it's actually reading the situation like very, very threatening. Yeah. And the other ones that have more resilience, they're like, it's all right. That will pass. Things will be okay. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And that's why we don't talk about small and big traumas. We just talk about how nervous system respond to the traumatic event.
I think that's a real different perspective than a lot of folks have, and I'm
Mm,
I'm I'm fascinated in one sense. I
mm,
try not to try not to
mhm.
be judgmental when people,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
example, and it doesn't matter. I remember back in,
Mhm.
I think it was the 1988 election, and I don't even remember who he was running against, but George Bush Sr. And my first wife actually cried because he was elected, because she didn't want him
Mm.
elected. And I'm thinking, really? Because he'll either be reelected in 4 years or we'll elect somebody else, but there will be change. And it's like, okay, what I have found by saying that, it doesn't help. Saying that does not help. That, hey, it's only temporary, it's only 4 years, okay,
Yeah.
maybe eight. But everything is changing. Those kinds of comments, those platitudes don't help people. So if those actually could actually do more harm than good, you have two systems you've combined, so to speak, somatic experimenting, that's right, and then systemic,
Experiencing,
I'm sorry,
experiencing.
experiencing. Okay, there's a misspell there. Somatic experiencing, and then systemic family constellations therapy. Let's talk about the first one, somatic experiencing. Describe that to our listeners and viewers.
Yeah. So somatic experiencing, it's all the energy of trauma that have been somatized in our system. Like everything that comes up, like we're talking about political situation. So people have actually seen things happening and they somatize so much energy of fight or running away. They feel like they have to run out of here before things get worse. Or they've gotten frozen because other political situations have been very bad and some people were killed. So whenever they see political situation worsening, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. You know what I mean? So then in their body, they have accumulated so much energy, so much energy that is generated in that defending themselves from whatever might come, even if it is not happening yet. So, and that's what we call it, somatized energy, somatized in the body. So then the Dr. Peter Levine, who started this method, created the method for healing this energy of trauma that is called somatic experiencing. So we are healing trauma by going through the body and feeling and noticing and experiencing the energy now in a different way. When you experience it for traumatic moment, you were so scared, you were so unprepared. It was too fast. It was too soon. It was too much. But now we want to go through slowly, and then you liberate it and let go of this energy so that you can live more freely. And that's where the name somatic experiencing come from.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I tell you that just that one system alone, that one example alone seems like it, boy, that would be great if I could just incorporate that. But you incorporate into that systemic family constellations
Constellation.
therapy.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
obviously, there is some relation to one's family or their tribe, if you will, or community. Describe for us systemic family constellations.
Yeah. So systemic family constellation, it is also this method of healing trauma. This was also founded by Bert Hellinger from Germany. He worked in South Africa for many years as a missionary, and he actually found this method there and integrated with many other things that he learned in life, yeah, his own experiences. But this method, it really heals trauma, and these are the trauma that run through the family, you see. Somatic experience heal the trauma that they could be developmental trauma, they could be shock trauma like car accident and all of that. But this family constellation system therapy, it heals traumas that are related with the family that run through the system of family. I said somatic experiencing, it's for the nervous system of the individual. And the family constellation system therapy is for the family system. So they're both of them kind of running together in a way that when you're able to pay attention to the energy that are somatized in your body, when you are beginning to liberate those energies, you are able to connect better with other members of your family. Yeah, because then that connection, especially that word connection, it is really very important. Yeah, so that's why we put them together, integrate together, because once you're looking at your nervous system and the other one you're looking at the family system and relationships among that, members of the family.
We're talking with Efu Nyaki, and we're talking about the work that she is doing, as well as the book that you have an opportunity to get a hold of, if you will, Healing Trauma Through Family Constellations and Somatic Experiencing. And we hope that you will go to her website, which is healingtraumawell.com. We will be linked to that website, healingtraumawell.com. That is where we will be linked as well as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story.
Yeah.
I'm Richard Dugan, and we're talking with Efu Nyaki, and we're talking about this process of healing our trauma, getting through it. And we do, it seems to me, is that the wrong term? Am I using the wrong term, that we must go through it? Or do these methods you've just referred to, they allow us not to have to go through it, that we are actually able to release it?
Ah, okay. I guess it's both sometimes, because you go through it, because if you can experience in your body just a little bit, we revisit it, not enough to re-traumatize, but just revisit that pain, that tension. Yeah. Like when we generate energy of defending ourselves, like if we could have run, or if we could have fight back if something hit us, or if we could come out of the frozen and do something. Yeah, so that energy is there, lots of energy. By the way, it's a lot of overwhelming energy that we carry. Many of us carry that kind of energy. So if we revisit it just a little tiny bit, yeah, and then when you feel it, then when we begin to feel it, we don't want it to overwhelm you again. We then go to what we call resource. Yeah, we find a resource, and then with that resource, you feel much better. And then your nervous system begins to relax and liberate all the energy that it is being carrying in the system. And then you are really free. Yeah. And it's, I mean, it's good. I always like to talk like this and give some examples. This is very good. Like, for
Please.
example, yes, if you are working with somebody who talks about their grandfather being a very vicious person who went to the war and killed a lot of people. So then, this person might be feeling so negatively about this ancestor, huh? And they will be worried and have fear of him. Yeah. So first of all, I actually invite them to feel the energy in their body, or they feeling when they're really talking about all this energy of the ancestor that passed many years ago. And actually it's hard to experience this, because the fear now, it is mostly in the head, since who went through the experiences is the grandfather. You didn't go through experiences, but our mind tends to judge a lot. Oh, he's a bad person, why he did that, and all of that. So when the person is judging and I check with them, they might feel tense. And then I begin to apply the orders of love that I mentioned in the book in a vast way, in a very elaborated way. So the orders of love is that orders that help the love to flow freely. Yeah, they say that we really need to reverence those who came before us. So your great grandfather, no matter what behavior he had, but he came before you and he's big, and so we don't really need to judge him, because anyway, we don't actually know why he did what he did. We don't know. Maybe he was provoked and his enemy and all that, and he had to. So if I begin to really bow to him and say that, my dear grandfather, I won't judge you, but I will just take your strength because I have your DNA. Okay. So I'm turning that from something negative to resource. Yeah. So when people said, yeah, you're right. I guess I have his DNA. And when I said he's a bad person, I guess I also am bad then if I'm looking at it that way. Then I said, okay, so then let's go, let go of the judgment and just kind of bow a little bit, saying, I recognize you. And whatever you did, though, I will let it be with you because I cannot do anything about it. I will let it be, and then I will take your strength with grateful heart, with grateful, my bones, my energy that I have came from you, went through my grandfather and my father. So I'm grateful. Whatever else happened doesn't belong to me. So thank you, my grandfather. They go like that. So I asked them, now, how do you feel in the body? So that is somatic experiencing. To notice the experiences in the body now is you change from cortical brain that is judging to a cortical brain that is accepting and seeing the side, positive side of the other person. They actually begin to feel well. They said, oh yeah, I feel actually well. I feel strong. I feel good. And then say, okay, this is it. This is how we really heal. From negativity to positive thinking and positive outlook, especially when we were into negative judgment. Okay, does that example help to
Yes,
elaborate?
it does indeed. And what's interesting about it is that the individual who takes on, shall we say, takes on the trauma of the grandfather in this example.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the things that occurs to me in that regard is, and again, I wouldn't say this to the person, but it was just be an observation on my part, is that the grandfather handled it the best way he knew how with what he had. In other words, my parents, they only had what they had to work with to raise us six kids.
Yeah.
Okay? They did the best they could with what they had. The grandfather did the best he could with what he had. Now,
Exactly.
still going through that process you just described, that's a beautiful thing to talk about. And we want to talk about some other things as well. One in particular that I'll be honest with you, it seems like it's permeating at least the Americas in a big way. We'll talk about that as we continue talking with Efu Nyaki here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, and Efu Nyaki is my guest here on the program. We're talking about healing trauma. You heard me right. Yes, believe it or not, it is possible to heal trauma. Healing trauma through family constellations and somatic experiences. That is the title of the book. And Healing Trauma Well is the website we'll be linked to. You can get yourself a copy. But I want to ask you about something that seems to almost permeate our society here in America, in particular, the United States, not all of America, the North, Central, and South. Depression, because people are feeling anxious over, whatever it is that they've chosen to feel anxious over. And they're taking medications and they're having to do this and that and the other thing. And the thought has occurred to me too, Efu, that when we have these different emotions,
Yeah.
they generate certain chemicals in the body. We're a biochemical machine, if you will, from that
Yeah.
aspect.
Mm.
And so if you're depressed, the same thing is happening. Your body is generating certain chemicals that in some instances tend to almost support the depression. They keep it going. So then we have to take outside pharmaceuticals to counteract that instead of doing working through what you have discovered. Talk to us about the influence of depression on our not only our bodies, but certainly in reference to, say, cultural values. Because I don't know. It seems to me this is one of the only ways that we're going to be able to get through it.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Yeah, and actually in the book, I have a chapter there about depression. Yeah, yeah. And because I really see depression is kind of a new disease. Depression is when we begin to believe that we are alone. And of course, we believe that we are alone because of the traumas, whatever happened in our childhood and when we have been hurt, and then we keep the anger and revenge kind of energy and rage. It's in there. So like you said, it's true. When you're so angry at something that happened in the past, which you have right to have that anger, your system is just liberating all these adrenaline, cortisol, all these really big type of hormones that are constantly making you feel tense, and you just don't feel the joy of living anymore. So you begin to feel, you go to bed, you feel tense, you feel tired. And as the hormones continue to be liberated, and of course, it might be counteracting with the medication from the doctors, but some of those also sum up into more tightening of the muscles too. So the person begin not to feel good, they feel down, 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 and they begin to give up the energy, the light of living. Like they don't feel anymore like, why am I feeling this way? I don't want to live like that. I think it's better to just die. And then they keep going down and down and down. So what we really help, then it is happening even in school with the little kids too, in the schools. Many people are having these symptoms of depression. So, and we know that comes from trauma. So what we want to do really is to help people, first of all, with depression. If we can get up, I know it's very hard to get out of bed when you're depressed.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have somebody to help you to move 1, 2, 3 steps, then you liberate endorphins that are very good in calming your system. You start feeling good right away. This is how I have helped people come to me with depression. I have this woman who came to me and she didn't want to talk. She didn't feel like talking. She didn't feel like, and I'm asking her, what's your name? How are you? Do you see? Do you feel? And just looking at me. And then I just said, all right, you don't have to say anything. I know, I understand how do you really feel all this pain of trauma, life. So just stand up. And I just started doing some movement, forcefully kind of just movement. But after about 10 minutes of doing just small movements, she started liking it and she started keep moving and moving and moving. And then when we sat, she was able to speak. Yes, now I feel much better. I wish I could have done this before. I don't know, nobody encouraged me. I live alone and this is very hard. So you see, even things like that help them to begin with. I know I'm not saying just doing those exercises, it's already a heal of trauma, but it is one movement that will help us out of it. And then from there, you can allow them to share their story slowly and be able to liberate the energy of trauma that is trapped in their system, that is really, how do you call that, weighing them, weighing their system so down that they don't have energy for life to be able to live. Yeah, yeah. And as I said, the traumas that create depression are many. The whole question of suicides, people take out their own lives. That also, like sometimes if there was a death in the family and it was not dealt with, sometimes one of the family member kind of follow into that. There are many, many reasons. And then, of course, all the deaths that have happened in the war and in different happenings, sometimes people take on that energy. So depression is a systemic problem. It's not one person's problem. So we have to be careful not to blame those who have depression. It's not their problem. It's systemic problem. We could heal that. We will really have a better society.
Now, you talked earlier when you gave the example of the grandfather, and it sort of implies that there is there's sort of a connection generationally, but in reality, there isn't really a connection. It's because the individual in the present day chooses to take on, let's say, the issues of the grandfather. Is that am I correct in my understanding?
Um, Not exactly that way, but there's a part of awareness that is what I talk about choosing. But you know what? Sometimes it's in the DNA, so they're not choosing, but they inherit through the DNA. So they can feel the anxiety that the grandfather felt throughout those moments of difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
However, when we are able to bow, we are able to say, to honor and say, I will give this back to you, grandfather, because this belongs to you. Actually, we feel better. We change. Yeah. So it's the matter of that it was passed on, and at the same time, there's also a cortical brain part of consciousness that I can actually let go of the judgment and let go of what I know from the stories. But some things are also stories that were told, but some things are just we don't have any story, but it comes through DNA.
Interesting.
Interesting, yeah.
Indeed, indeed. Efu Nyaki is my guest here on the program. We're talking about healing trauma, and we hope that you will continue listening to the program as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, and we're talking with our very special guest. She is the author of the book that is entitled Healing Trauma Through Family Constellations and Somatic Experiences. I wanted to touch on something that you reference in the book, and for some, it may be a little on the controversial side, and that's fine. But for others, it kind of helps a little bit. What role does I should say trauma, maybe it is depression. What role does that play when we start talking about, and here in America, it's huge, conversation piece, so to speak, and very controversial, the issue of transgender transmission patterns in terms of trying to decide I was born a male, but I don't feel like I'm in the right body, and vice versa, and that they want to transition to a different gender. Is there a
Yeah.
connection there? What if there is? What is that connection?
Yeah, their connection because like that is part of, transgender that people have. It's part of life. Yeah, it cannot be separate from life itself. But we don't know how the other person is feeling, huh? It could be connected to transgenerational trauma. It could be just not. It's not well, first of all, I want to take that out. It is not a disease. The transgender processes, it's not that people are sick or people are psychological
Hmm.
affected. That's why they are changing this. No,
Right.
it's how they feel in their system, and we don't know how they are feeling. Yeah,
Mm.
because there are hormones that people have in their system, and again, inherited, yeah, from the DNA. And we don't, and also not only that, there's a lot of changes that is happening in the universe and how biologically we are evolving, I will say that. And therefore, people have different feelings and different things they're feeling in their nervous system or in their felt sense, of which nobody else understands how the other person is feeling.
Mm.
Yeah. So when a person decide that this is how I want to be called, and actually I want to do a surgery and change how I am to this way, we cannot intervene that because we don't know how they are feeling. But we can accompany them. We can, whatever they need, the process, whatever they need, we can accompany them because they are in touch with their own needs
Hmm.
in life. Yeah. Now, the problem with society is we create rules of do's and don'ts,
Mm-hmm.
especially when we touch into sexuality. It's a topic that we have not evolved much. We are still into sin and what you should do and what you should not do. And therefore, we really, when we come to this theme, and especially of treating other people who are different than us, we want to maintain a status quo. Yeah? And this is how it is. We have men and women. We have female and men. Why can't we just stay with that and go on with life? We can't. Somebody is different and we have to understand and include them. Yeah. So in the book, for me, I talk a lot about inclusion. I talk about accept people the way they are. So somebody is born and they come and they say, no, I don't want to be called this. I want to be called that. And actually, I feel this way and I want to address this that way. We just welcome them and accept them the way they are. If they are one of the children, we accept them just they are. Yeah, we don't exclude them just because of their sexual orientation or because of their gender or because of their decisions. We just accept them, especially when they're adults. Now, when they're children, parents need to accompany them. Yeah, the parents need to be closely to them, not to tell them, don't do this, don't do that, and be very domineering. But it's just to keep asking them how they're feeling and having maybe a therapist accompany them to come to a fuller decision. Yeah, I remember if I would have that, I would even quote it. But I know it's a couple of years ago, I ran into this newsletter that talked about a little boy who was only 12 years old and in Chicago. And he actually he came from school and he told his mother that I think I want to be a girl. And the mother said, well, but you're a boy. And he said, well, I don't know, but that's how I feel. I feel like a girl. And it created quite polemic those days, a few years ago, it was like kind of not easy for people to go about this. And the school was like, well, we don't know what to do with him. But anyway, the scientists asked if it was possible to do a research on him and see if in his brain there was something different from other kids. And sure enough, they did find something in his brain, in his right brain, that there was something quite different compared to other boys and girls. And therefore, the conclusion was, this is what actually making him. He was not hermaphrodite, of course. He was a boy, but he was feeling that the hormones, the female hormones were like stronger to him. And he just wanted to change into that to be called a girl and to continue now in life as a girl. So because he was in school and was young, so he had accompaniment of the doctors and psychologists, and he continued very well and he remained in his choice. So we want to see something like that. Yeah, we get into the polemic when we want to force people to follow one way of life. But we have to understand that we are so different. And this doesn't start today. The indigenous people were always like this. The indigenous people, actually, I know many indigenous people, communities where they don't name children when they are little. They are waiting for them to define actually their own sexuality, their own identity, and then they give them names. Yeah. So I think it's something we need to learn quite a bit yet. Yeah, we're not there. Yeah. And it's nothing to fight about. It's something to welcome everybody the way they come and their desires.
Efu Nyaki is my guest, and we're talking about healing trauma, and we're doing that here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan here with Efu Nyaki, and we're talking about trauma. We're talking about the things that trauma brings about, and depression is one of them. And of course, the hard part for me in the conversation such as what you just shared with us, and again, I am certainly understanding where you're coming from, is that judgment aspect. And the one thing that really strikes me that a lot of people don't understand, and I learned this in biology, and I don't remember if it was in grade school or high school biology, and I believe it's still true, that when we are initially created and there is a gender assigned by nature, the very first gender is female. We all started out as females.
Interesting.
And so, in a manner of speaking, and I say this a little tongue in cheek just to keep it light, that young boy was tapping into his early stages of existence. That's all. He knew that he
Beautiful.
started out as a girl, as a female, and that's where
Mhm.
he wants to go back to. Now, certainly we can get into all of the other psychological and legal ramifications and all of this stuff,
Right, right.
but there are ways to support individuals who do not feel that they're in the right gender body or in the right skin. And I actually equate it to a cosmetic surgery that I used to have a problem with other people getting it because I'm thinking, maybe you should seek some therapy because you think that your nose is too big or your ears are out too far or whatever it is, or a woman needs a breast enlargement or reduction or whatever the case might be.
Mhm.
And then I got to thinking about that, thinking, well, no, wait a minute. If she doesn't feel comfortable, let's just say wearing a yellow trench coat, she's going to take it off and put on a green one. What's the difference between that and maybe making the nose smaller or the breast smaller or putting pinning
Yeah.
the ears back? Matter of fact, I still remember a young man. I was in grade school at the time having an eye surgery, and my roommate in the room I was in, his ears stuck out, and he was there having surgery to pin his ears back a little bit more so they didn't stick out. Now, on the face of it, I'm thinking, well, wait, maybe he's just to get used to it. I mean, yeah, and then I'm thinking, hey, I'm getting bullied at school because I have low vision and I'm carrying big print books and all of that stuff. I can only imagine what he must be going through, and
Yeah,
that may help to stop
yeah,
that business and he'll
yeah,
be experiencing less trauma.
yeah,
So the
yeah,
dynamics are
exactly.
very interesting in all of this,
Yeah.
from society as well as from ourselves as we choose or not choose to take on a traumatic position, shall we say,
Mhm.
or not, and say, no big deal. The elevator's falling. Hey, what's the big deal? Yeah.
Mhm.
Or screaming and yelling at the top of your lungs that the elevator's falling. Um, I will tell you very briefly, when my wife and I were in Ireland back in 2004, we went out to one of the islands to the west of Ireland, and they had this big granite fort. It was just stacked stones, but they had this huge granite slab that was sitting right on the cliff. And the slab actually stuck out about 5 or 6 feet.
Wow.
And without any fear, I went out, I sat out on the end of that slab with my feet dangling over the edge. And the only thing below me, hundreds of feet, I don't know how many, was the ocean.
Wow.
And I had no fear. And I was taking pictures, of that, of where I was sitting, around
Mhm.
me.
Mhm.
When we got back to our cottage that later that afternoon, we went to bed. That's when the fear set in. There I was safe and warm in my bed, and now I'm afraid of falling off of that granite stone and landing in the Atlantic Ocean. I have never understood why that happened.
That is trauma.
It was,
Exactly trauma. Now that you understand trauma.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what's fascinating is it does not necessarily happen at the moment that we are
Mhm.
experiencing the particular event that we are generating the trauma over. it can be delayed.
It is delayed. It's later on your body when you come out. That moment, sometimes we are not actually in touch with the fear at all. There's something in the body, we don't know, it takes over, you're not. But when you move away from it, and then maybe you have, I don't know, whatever it was in your cortex, something could have triggered a little bit. And then that fear comes up. Yeah. And then you begin to tremble and you begin to feel like, oh my gosh, I could have died. What did I do that?
Is that what we're calling post-traumatic stress syndrome?
Yeah, it's post-traumatic syndrome, right? Because it comes later, it's after trauma. When somebody looked at you doing what you were doing, they go like, oh my God, that guy. Your cortical brain, when you were doing that, sitting there taking pictures, your cortical brain is saying, oh, this is all right and no problems. But your body, your physical body knows that it was not all right. Because our physical body knows that what is threatening and what is dangerous, the body knows. But the cortical brain sometimes is not connected. And that's why when we are hearing trauma, we want to connect with the physical body, because that's where the trauma is stuck.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing, even this moment, what's going through my mind as far as that specific experience on the slab, and so forth. And again, not having any fear at that moment. Of course, all I'm hearing from behind me is my wife saying, "So where did you put the life insurance policy?" Because she's worried like crazy that I'm going to slip and fall, and that'll be that. But I will say it was an extraordinary experience. I wouldn't trade it by any means, because it was such a wonderful place to be, and to at that moment not have that fear, to be able to experience sitting there, in a manner of speaking, on the edge of the universe, with nothing below me but the water. It gives one pause to think about their place in the universe, or in my case, my place in the universe, in that, I was on a cruise with my first wife twice. And I stood out on the deck looking out over the railing at the curvature of the earth. And it gave me pause to think that, oh my, on one hand, I can see the curvature of the earth. The earth is really round. Not that I ever disbelieved that. But then there was the other part that said, this was now the fear-laden part that said, and if I fall overboard, I'm out here in the vast Pacific Ocean, a tiny little nothing in the vastness of all this water. They're never going to find me. This will be my final resting place. That kind of thing. It was really something. We're talking with Efu Nyaki and healing trauma, and we're doing that here on Tell Me Your Story. Ifo, I want to thank you so much for giving us so much time here on the program and sharing with us again. I really enjoyed our first conversation. Of course, you were a lot warmer then, and now you're all bundled up there in Poland. But I thank you for taking the time. I'm guessing it's probably evening there, and for sharing with us all of the insights that you have thus far. And we look forward to talking with you again. Is there anything that you would like to leave with our listeners and viewers before we wrap things up?
Yes, I just want to say that I think we are living in an era where we are really lucky. Many years ago, these traumas were always there. But people never knew what was happening. I remember many people will have a lot of symptoms in their body, and people like, what are they crazy? Are they getting crazy? What is happening to them? And nowadays, I just know whoever I found that they have different reactions in their body, that the doctors cannot find reasons at all. I always say that is trauma. Let's work on it. And so I just want to say that we are so lucky, and we should use this opportunity to heal traumas, because many of us are traumatized. I don't know who can say that they're not traumatized, because even being born again, by itself, it has some trauma that comes with it. So when you get opportunity, look for therapists, read my book, find out, and so that you can live more freely. Thank you. That's what I
Healing.
want to advise people.
Absolutely. Healing Trauma Well is the website, healingtraumawell.com. And we certainly hope that you will go there. We will be linked to your website, Ifu, though, so that people can get more information and get a copy of your book. I think I asked you the last time, is it yet available in Audible format?
Yeah, yes, it is. It is
Excellent.
available.
So folks can listen to it and
Mhm.
glean all the good stuff. And I like what you said at the beginning of the program, that we don't talk about trauma in terms of size. Trauma is
Mm,
just trauma.
yeah.
It's how we deal with it, and in the case of what you share with our listeners, you are using the different modalities, the two modalities from the book title, actually, healing trauma through family constellations and somatic experiences, and ancestral wisdom from the Snail Clan of Tanzania. And I still love, I don't know why it intrigues me so that you grew up, born, and were raised on the slopes of Kilimanjaro. I don't know if it's because I like the name of the Kilimanjaro. It sounds great. But what a life that must have been living there. That must be one big mountain too.
Yeah, yeah. It's big, beautiful. Look like with all that snow, in Tanzania where people you say it is hot, but there you are, like in the middle of Africa, this mountain with snow on top of it.
Wow. It's
Mystery.
You don't think of snow in Africa. You really don't.
No,
Most people would not,
no,
any more
no.
than they would think of snow in Australia for that matter. And so it's very, very interesting. And I thank you again for joining us. I do want to ask you three final questions that I ask all of my guests. I did ask you the last time, and the answers may be the same, they may be different. But before I do, I want to thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. We are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here on Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and we are here Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We have podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Spreaker, and we're on YouTube where you can watch these conversations, and you can see how bundled up Ifu is there in Poland. We also encourage you to get a copy of her book. Go to her website, which of course is healingtraumawell.com. We also want to remind you that Choices 5 Steps for Life is available at Amazon. It's available in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle. There's a link at richarddugan.com to the Amazon location of my book, Choices. And then also, if you can help us out financially, we would be gratefully appreciative. We have a PayPal account where there is also a link at richarddugan.com to the PayPal account. Whatever amount, we'd be gratefully appreciative. Thank you, thank you, thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. And finally, to take some time, we ask you to do that during this decade of perfect vision, to spend some time going within and listening to that still small voice. And now to our final three questions for a very special guest. The first of those three questions is, and I'm going to try this just one more time. Who is Efu Nyaki?
Yes, Euphrasia Nyaki.
Afrasia.
Yes, Euphrasia. My name Euphrasia means a flower that heals your eyes. And so I'm a healer in all aspects. And I dare to say that because I have this energy I know comes from my ancestors, comes from God, comes from the universe, and I use it as I travel all over the world.
Well, Efrazia, thank you for that. Also, what gets you up in the morning?
What gets me up in the morning is the strength I have from my ancestors.
Mm. And finally, what was your best day?
My best day, my best day was yesterday and today as I woke up
Mm.
and I said, I'm alive.
Mm.
And every day I wake up, I say, I'm alive. So it's my best day. I'm alive.
Well, we are glad for that. And we thank you so much, Efu Nyaki, for joining us here on the program. And I thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. And until our next broadcast, podcast, video cast, love to Lal. Jeanette, I am still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Mike, thanks for letting me in your life. Smokey, I'll see you on the other side. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.